Hi, welcome to the Schuessler Stewart home here in beautiful Madison, Indiana. My name's Greg, and this is my home, and welcome to my kitchen. I have always enjoyed cooking. It is really something that brings me peace, grounds me, especially after a long day at work. I am an executive in healthcare, and after a long, busy day, a lot of decision making, etc., I want to come home and relax, and one thing that helps ground me and relax me is to cook. All of my friends know it, all of the staff at the hospital know it. In fact, I bake for the staff all the time. So a friend of mine approached me the other day. His wife is getting ready to approach a birthday here in 2 days. And he asked if I would make some cupcakes that I made for a recent event here at the home. The great smell in the air right now is a strawberry lavender preserve that I'm cooking down for some cupcakes that I'm going to be making here shortly. So I went ahead and started this before the recording took place. So basically I cut up a bunch of strawberries, macerated them, put them in a plastic bag, put a little bit of vanilla extract and butter extract in there and just let it set until all the juices started to form. And then I poured it into a small saucepan, added some sugar, of course, and the sugar is to your taste. Really, it is in the taste of the cook, so I put a lot of sugar. You don't get my size, eating lightly. So after I did that, I went out to one of the lavender plants outside, picked off a bunch of blooms, about 2 tablespoons worth of blooms, combined that with a cup of water, a cup of sugar, boiled that down for about 30 minutes until it turned into a syrup, and then I poured the syrup in with the strawberries. Now, as it's cooking down, it's turning into a fantastic preserve, as you can see here. And once it gets to the thickness that I'd like, I'll turn the heat off, I'll let it cool, and it'll get to a consistency and congel that I can pipe it into the cupcakes. So what we're gonna make is very easy. I'm gonna show you how to do it. Anyone can do this. It's gonna look like $1,000,000 when you're done. So I always feel like if you're going to make a gift for someone, it should be homemade. It doesn't take that much to make a homemade gift, and presentation speaks volumes for the care that you have for that individual. So I am making these cupcakes for Aretha, a good friend of ours whose birthday is coming up. Now, Aretha is very interesting because she is an ally of the LGBT community, and I am fortunate and blessed to know her. She actually runs the local PFLAG group here in Madison, Indiana, and the Hanover, Indiana, and surrounding areas. So I feel like this is a great gift to give back to her for all she does to the community and to support. Remember, love is love. So we're going to start these cupcakes. Now, I said we're going to make them homemade, so I have taken the liberty to go ahead and measure out most of the ingredients, mix the dry ingredients, but I use Pillsbury soft silk cake flour. I feel it is probably the best that I've used. You can get other brands, but this has never let me down. So you can get a large box of this. It's only a couple bucks and it lasts for a long period of time. On the back are directions on how to make various cakes, but you can actually go to their website, or you can just do a web search for homemade cakes and it'll talk you through. So my instructions are not on the box because I do this a little bit differently, but Pillsbury will never let you down. So I've measured out all of my dry ingredients. So the baking powder, the salt, the baking soda, etc. are already combined together. Now, the butter that I use for this, because it is going to be a strawberry sponge, I like this Chef Chamois honey butter, strawberry flavored. So I get this at Sam's Club. Pretty inexpensive, delicious. And I also like Tillamook butter. So I cut a little bit, about a half a stick of the Tillamook, and melted it in with the honey butter that is strawberry flavored. And it will be used in the cupcakes as well. I've taken the liberty to go ahead and crack the eggs. We're fortunate in the carriage house out back, we raise an assortment of poultry, and we have our hens that lay every day for us. One of the tricks to making cakes and confections, if you're using eggs, is do not use refrigerated egg. Let the egg get to room temperature, and that's what I've done. These eggs are at room temperature. I've taken the liberty to go ahead and pour the milk that I'm going to need, and I measured out the butter that is needed for this recipe. It is important to mix all of the liquid ingredients together. Usually you do that in the blender or mixer, but I have already put the dry ingredients in there. So I'm going to dump or pour the butter in here. I'm going to pour the eggs in here. And I'm going to pour the milk in here. Now again, the measurements are going to be based on what kind of a cake you're making. You can find your recipe online. You can also find it on the back of Pillsbury if you're purchased a Pillsbury product. If you don't find the flavor that you want, don't try to substitute with the recipe that's on the back of the box, because oftentimes you'll be disappointed. That recipe is specific to the flavor that might be on that box. So it's worth putting some investment online of finding the cake recipe that you want, familiarizing yourself with it, and then going and purchasing the ingredients that are needed for it. So I'm just going to whisk all of these liquid ingredients together. The one thing I forgot to mention is that the butter is also room temperature. Now, I know most people refrigerate their butter. I am not a fan of refrigerated butter. Mine always is at room temperature. However, we go through a pound of butter at least a week. So I'm not too worried about it, and I am going to be cooking this. So it's all mixed together. Nice liquid composition there. And I'm just going to add it to the dry ingredients and turn it on slow. So I am fortunate with this KitchenAid. It's a little bit larger, so I can double or even triple the amount of batter I'm going to make. But this is just for a small group of people for her birthday, so I'm making a smaller batch. So always start slow. Once it gets basically mixed together, you can turn it up and beat it on high. And I'm going to say for about 3 minutes we'll beat this on high. So now that the cake batter is done, it's time to pour it into the liners for baking. Now, I like to use these little cardboard liners to bake in, and there's a few reasons for this. The typical cupcake liner is paper and consistency. Depending on how much oils, butter, etc. that you've used in your batter, once it bakes and starts to cool, oftentimes it'll peel away from the cupcake, and you have a cupcake that now is exposed to air and can start to harden around the edges. So my way around that is to use these little cardboard cups. Now, I found these online. I believe Amazon is the company that I was able to search through and locate these cardboard liners. You can get them in any color. They stand free-form on a cookie tin, and it helps with baking more evenly. The trick to getting them consistent in the cupcake liner itself is to use a piping container. So this I picked up at Hobby Lobby, and you can pour your batter in it, and then you have control of how much comes out of this into the cupcake liners themselves. So we're going to go ahead and start pouring in here. At this point, I have turned off the strawberry lavender preserves, and I am letting them cool. Now this is a must to always have a towel to wipe your hands on. Of course, by Felicia. So put your lid on it, helps pressurize it, and then you just start squeezing the batter in. I always go half full on the filling. If you go too much, it'll come up and put a big mound over top of the cupcake liner, and you don't want that. You want an even cupcake. That's the oven telling us it's ready. So this might take a little while to get this piped in. Be patient. It's well worth it. Now, unlike traditional cake mixes that you might purchase in a store, and you know that you're probably going to get, what, 24 cupcakes or something like that, that's not the case when you're making it from scratch. You usually don't get as many. So you have to learn over time how to double batters, etc. And there is an art to it. So I suggest doing the research online, because it may seem simple that you might just double the ingredients, but oftentimes that's not the case, and it leads to very dry cupcakes. So this made just about the amount that I thought it was going to make. It made 20 cupcakes, and that's what I was assuming was going to come out of this batter. And then go through and just make sure that it's consistent all the way across. All right, so our cupcake liners are filled. They're filled consistently and ready to go in the oven. Now there's a trick to the oven. If you put these in, typically they say to bake a cake at 350 degrees, a cake, cupcakes, etc. The problem with this is that's a lot of heat all at once, and what it does is cause the cake and the cupcakes to rise significantly, and that is why you always have typically a rounded mound on top of a cake or cupcakes. If you want a cake to slowly rise and look more even and consistent, then you want to lower the temperature. Now I lower the temperature to 325 degrees, and it takes longer to cook a cupcake or a cake, but it's well worth it. It's less that you are going to have to cut and level in the cake, and you don't want a cupcake that's so mounded that you are unable to decorate it. So we're ready to go in the oven. I think we'll pause, we'll wait for these to come out of the oven, and we'll go from there. Bye, Felicia. Okay, so the cupcakes are baking as we speak, and I'm going to move to the buttercream icing. So there's various recipes for buttercream. You can do a French buttercream, etc. I'm using a good old-fashioned American buttercream that has been passed down through my family for generations. Very easy to make, and the reason I use it is it seems more stable to me and it's easier to work with. Now that could just be because it's what I was raised on. I don't use real butter in it though, because if you use real butter in your buttercream frosting, as heat fluctuates, you'll find that it doesn't set as well, and it actually melts and it doesn't hold shape. So we're using good old-fashioned, well, basically good old-fashioned vegetable shortening. So here's the recipe. Very quick, very easy, and very simple. Need my beater bar, of course. So I have already put about 5 cups of powdered sugar in the mixer here. I don't always measure my ingredients, and I know that's a bad thing because most people should. So I typically eye it, and this is about 3/4 of a cup of vegetable shortening that I'm adding to that. It really should be about a cup. We'll see here in a moment as it starts to mix. So those are the first 2 ingredients that are going to go in the icing. Now one thing, or frosting, whatever you feel like calling it, one thing that I like to do is add a pinch of salt to it. A lot of people don't add that, but I feel like I love that sweet and salty taste combined, and often it gets mixed through really well depending on how long you whip it. And you can taste the sweet and salty at the same time, and I love that. So these are the basic first two ingredients that you're going to put in here. So we're going to go ahead and just turn it on and let it mix slightly together. Let me turn this off and talk us through the rest of this frosting first. So I'm going to make this, outside of being a good old-fashioned American buttercream, I am going to flavor this. Now, one of the items I'm going to use is rose water. Now, I get this from Shaker Village outside of Lexington, Kentucky, and I love going to Harrodsburg to visit the Shaker Village. If you've never been, it's well worth going to, but they sell this in one of their stores there. And it basically is a steam derivative of rose extract, basically from the rose hips. A little goes a long way though. Do not overdo rose extract or you won't like it. So I have already pre-measured this, and I'm doing about 1/4 teaspoon. I know that sounds like just a little bit, but it really is a lot. The next thing that I'm gonna add is about 1.5 teaspoons of a French vanilla. This I just got from the regular grocery store in the baking aisle, and it probably the store brand. I didn't get anything fancy. It's gonna add the flavoring. You're not gonna taste it. Let me take that back. You'll taste it. You're not gonna know it's not a name brand. So I've added the extracts, but the last extract that I'm going to add is this. Here at the Schuessler Stewart House, we make our own vanilla extract. So we typically start with a good bourbon or vodka, but I typically like bourbon. I fill a quart jar or a pint jar full, and then I get vanilla beans. You can get them in the baking aisle of most grocery stores. If not, order them online. You can get them through Amazon. Once they show up, open them and take a knife and cut them in half. And then you just simply drop those halves into the bourbon and you let it set. So this is set for about 6 months. Now this is a lot of vanilla extract, I grant you, but you always want to use pure vanilla extract. The reason for that is the alcohol cooks out and it doesn't change the composition of what you're cooking or baking. However, if you use imitation, it's a water base, so it could change the composition slightly of what you're baking. So always go with pure vanilla extract. So we're gonna open this. Smells so good. And I'm gonna do about 1/2 teaspoon in this. And we're just gonna turn the mixer on and let it do its thing. I'm gonna let this mix, and then I'm gonna turn it up higher and mix for about probably 3 minutes, and then I'm gonna add milk to it and get the consistency that I'd like to obtain. So that's simply how you make an American buttercream. Very easy, basically 5 ingredients total. Okay, so we are back, and while we were on a break, I went ahead and doubled the recipe for the buttercream. But here's what it looks like. So pretty thick, but I really need it to be a thick consistency for the piping through the Russian decorating tips that we're going to use on these cupcakes in a little bit. And I'll talk more about that in a moment. It's just so delicious. So it'll never let you down. It is a staple when you're a baker and when you're making wedding cakes and things of that nature. This is a go-to. This is also good if you're making a wedding cake or reception cupcakes and they don't want a white icing. It is off color, as you can see, and because I used that French vanilla in it, it has really given it ivory color. I could eat this by the spoonful. So I'm gonna place it back over here and stay away from it. So that's pretty much where we're at right now, waiting for the cupcakes to finish. The preserves, as you can see, they're now getting to room temperature and they are starting to solidify. It's going to be perfect for me to put in the center of each of the cupcakes. The icing is ready. I may have to thicken this icing to really get the form of the roses that you'll see come out of this Russian cake decorating tip we're going to use. But it's all exciting, and all of this work, which really hasn't been a lot. I mean, you could knock cupcakes out in 1 hour, be done start to finish, cooling, icing, everything. But really take your time and enjoy it. This is your opportunity to just relax and enjoy your surrounding. Have a glass of wine if you want while you're cooking or baking. Listen to music. I have the piano playing in the next room. And just immerse yourself in the activity so you enjoy it. Remember, this is a gift you're giving to someone or yourself. You should always see it as a gift to yourself, I should say. And savor the time that you put into it and really enjoy the product when it's done. So we're going to stop for a moment. We're going to wait for those cupcakes to finish, and I'm going to show you what cooking them at a lower temperature has done for us. Be right back. Okay, so the cupcakes have come out of the oven, and you'll see what they're hot. So you'll see what I'm talking about right now. They cooked to an even level. If I would have had this temperature really at 350, they would have been domed, and I don't want that for what we're doing. So the other important thing to do after you take cupcakes out of the oven is get them out of the metal pan as quickly as possible. If you don't, it continues to cook the cupcake and it can make for a dry cupcake. So I am just going to throw these on the granite here, which obviously is cool, and hope it helps kind of start the cooling process a little quicker. Now, one of the things I mentioned earlier was the simple lavender syrup that I made. And again, it was just 2 tablespoons of lavender flour boiled with 1 cup of sugar, 1 cup of water. Let it boil at a low temperature and seep for about 30 minutes. Then I put it through a strainer. And I have a wonderful simple syrup to use to flavor things like the preserves. But I also made some iced tea and sweetened the tea with the lavender simple syrup. It is absolutely delicious. It's well worth trying. And of course, I know I have a straw, but it's a paper straw because I believe in protecting the environment. Don't use plastic. It's bad for the sea animals and the turtles. So we're gonna let these cupcakes cool. Once they're cool, we're going to start decorating them, and you're going to see magic happen in front of your eyes. This is my favorite part of baking. When you can take the products, have them ready to go, and turn it into a beautiful masterpiece. And these cupcakes will be pieces of art when we're done. So hang tight, we'll be right back. And I look forward to showing you how to decorate with a Russian cake decorating tip. You're going to be absolutely amazed at how beautiful these turn out with little effort. So stay tuned. Okay, so we are back. The cupcakes are cooling, but I wanted to show you how we're going to core out the insides of the cupcakes. So simply, this is used when you're stacking wedding cakes. You can get this at any cake supply store and just tell them you want the hollow tubes that you use to elevate cakes or to use as enforcement within a cake as you're baking. As you're decorating. So simply stick it in the middle, turn it sideways, and you'll see you have a perfectly round hole. And you'll just go through and do all of them that way. There's no need to take the core out because it just continues to push up into the tube. So as you can see, I can knock out a lot of these relatively quick. All right, so we are back. And pardon the angle of the camera, but in order for you to see how this works, I felt like I needed to reposition the camera. So you're looking down on me, and I'm going to show you how to fill these cupcakes. So I have what is known as a plastic piping bag. You can get these from any of the crafting stores, baking stores, etc. Relatively inexpensive and disposable. So at this point, my strawberry preserve filling that I cooked and used the simple lavender syrup in is ready. So I'm gonna just scoop that right into the bag. I'm gonna leave enough for me to have on some biscuits that I'm going to make a little bit later. So once you have it in the bag, you'll twist your bag around to keep it from coming out, and simply take a pair of scissors and snip off about 1/2 inch. So that's gonna give you a nice opening, as you can see, and you'll just stick it down into the center and start piping your filling into the cupcakes. So I'm gonna do this as you're watching. It's very easy to do. If you get it above the cupcake, that's okay. We're gonna be decorating it with buttercream, so it's not gonna make that big of a difference, but try not to get it above it and keep it in the cupcake. And a little filling goes a long way with a cupcake, especially if they're gonna be eating it in a public environment and not have plates and things of that nature. You don't want the filling to go anywhere. So all of the cupcakes are now filled. This strawberry lavender preserve is delicious. And remember, it's just strawberries that I cut up. I let macerate with a little bit of vanilla extract and butter extract, or butter flavoring. Then I cooked it down, added sugar, and then added my lavender simple syrup until it got thick. Let it cool to room temperature, and it is absolutely out of this world. You definitely need to try it. Okay, we're back, and I want to talk a little bit about the decorating tip that I'm going to be using. So this is a large bag, and you'll get these at any crafting store. Go to the baking section and find the largest bag that you can get. These tips are absolutely incredible. They are called Russian cake decorating tips. And I'm going to take this closer to the camera so you can see the design that's in it. This will pipe out an entire rose in one piping versus the old-fashioned using the tip and making a petal after petal after petal. So I love this tip. It does a lot of work very quickly. So I've attached it to the bag. When you buy the tips, you'll get the entire kit that helps connect it to the bag. And I have already tinted the icing. I wanted a soft kind of terracotta peachy color, and that is what I came up with. And just play with the colors until you find a color that you're happy with. I love playing with the cake icing tint colors. I will give some advice, and that is always get gel colors. Gel colors seem to blend much better in the frosting than the water-based ones. So don't overfill your bag. Just fill it maybe 2/3 of the way and then twist it and pipe until you just get a little bit of the edge there. And what you'll want to do with that little bit of edge, scrape it off. So this is where we're starting. And I'm going to show you how quick and how easy and how beautiful this will turn out. You grab your cupcake, just hold it in your hand, put your tip down toward it, pipe out, pull up, pipe, pull up, pipe, pull up. You just continue to do that until you've made it all the way around the rose, or around the cupcake. And this is what you're going to end up with. And I hope that you can see that. The lighting may be a little off with that. Now you can do that a little bit more if you would like, but we're really going to do some magic here in just a moment. So I'm going to stop with that one so you've seen that I have piped 7 rosettes on this. I also tinted some icing green. A bag, again, you can get your bags, you can get disposable or reusable. I get reusable. These go a long way. So I know I probably am throwing you off with all these camera angles, but I want you to really be able to see how this works as we're piping. So here is the cupcake I just decorated with the Russian cake decorating tip. And now I am going to use a Wilton number 352. It's a leaf making tip. You can buy a whole set for like 20 bucks. It's well worth the investment, and then experiment on how to use them. So I have already tinted some icing here, and I'm just gonna add this icing to the bag. I don't need a whole lot, so we're just gonna do that for sake of time here. I'm gonna squeeze it to the base, turn the bag as I showed you earlier, squeeze a little bit out. Then I'm gonna take this cupcake, and where you see all of the cake there around the edges, I'm gonna pipe in a leaf. So here is where we're at now. Okay, so we're back, and I want to show you these sprinkles. They call them gold sugar pearls, dragées, if you will. But this is what they look like. Very small sugar balls, and we are going to use these. Now, usually I use a pair of tweezers to put them on in the centers of the roses, but I'm just going to do this by hand for sake of time. So you get one, and you go to the center of the rose, and you just drop that dragée in there. And you work your way around the entire thing. And there's what it looks like with all of the dragées in it. But we're not gonna stop there. Hold on one moment, and we're gonna add one more element. All right, so I am back, and we're getting ready to add another element to this. And this is called disco dust. It is an edible glitter that you can get, and I lightly do a dry brush with it, and then just hit the edge of my hand to drop that on the cupcake. Now, you may not be able to see this in the lighting that's here, but as I turn this, there is an edible glitter on this cupcake to finish it off. So I'll move it in closer. And there is a beautiful gift. So, the end product looks like this. Now, this is a truly lovely gift to give to someone, homemade, that looks like $1 million. I am so pleased to be able to give these to my friend for her birthday. She celebrates diversity, she accepts people for who they are, and is a true advocate for LGBTQ youth. So I am gonna wish her a happy birthday and many more. I hope you enjoyed this segment of cupcakes, because each week I hope to do a little bit more, maybe show people how to make the infused extracts for flavoring, etc., make a wedding cake, a floral arrangement, etc. It is so fun to use your creativity to make beautiful things at a fraction of the cost you'll find in a grocery store. So with that being said, I wish you great baking and good health. And remember, love is love, embrace people for who they are, and have unconditional positive regard for others.